I've been criticised, as I often am, for deciding that this time in the general election, I'm not voting. I don't believe in the system and I want to be out of it. I don't want to be responsible. I don't want to acquiesce to their nonsense. I don't want to consent to it. Now, people say, but Richard, you can't get out of the system. Even if you don't vote, then whoever gets in will be making the rules, the regulations, and you'll still be subject to them, whichever way you look at it. And to a degree, that is true. So let me put it this way. I think of the government, the situation, the system that we have as the Titanic. The Titanic is a great big ocean liner and it is destined to hit an iceberg. And the iceberg is an object that has been preordained for the Titanic. It's going to hit this iceberg and the Titanic will sink. The iceberg has been positioned there by the dark forces, by the Luciferians, the Satanists, the Freemasons, whoever you want to call them, the Bank of International Settlements, the Club of Rome, all the nasties in this world. They are putting the iceberg in front of the Titanic, come what may. And the Titanic is on this preordained course. No matter what you do, it is going to hit that. So you can change your captain, you can change your passengers, you can change your crew, you can put Nigel Farage in front, steering the ship. And he may say, I want nothing to do with the WEF, I want to get out of the Bank of International Settlements, I want to change this, I want to change that, we'll get rid of the policies of net zero, we'll do all of this. But either way, the Titanic is still going to hit the iceberg because the Titanic has, no matter what you do to it, has been infiltrated so badly over many hundreds of years that the dark forces have their people in there. And if anyone thinks that by changing the people at the top is going to make the blind bit of difference, they're all puppets. We know they're puppets. We know that their strings are being pulled, that at the end of the day, they're all blackmailed, or they're all greedy, or they're all bribed, whatever it is, to follow the direction that the dark forces want. And I don't think, no matter how you change that, the crew, the captain, and the officers and all that will make the blind bit of difference. Paint it a different colour if you want, it's still going to hit the iceberg. And that's because it's operating this very strange and archaic two-party system. And to me, that system, the House of Commons, the Houses of Parliament, the whole system is rotten to the core. So rotten now it cannot stand up. And if people can't see it, then they're clearly blind. And what I'm saying by not voting is actually I want a completely different system. That system is no longer working for us. And we know that because, let's face it, look around and see what we've got. We've got a tyrannical dictatorship at the top telling us what we're going to have. Now, democracy ought to be the other way round. And unless it was that way round, if it was that way round, I would be voting for it. But it isn't. The people should be making the decisions. The people should then go to their representative. Their representative sits in the House of Commons and says, this is what these people want. You're the executive, go and do it. But it doesn't work that way. So I would want a different system. What does it look like? What does the other system look like? Well, I think that if you think about it, this two-party system hasn't been going on for that long. I mean, you'll remember that there was Charles I, who had his head chopped off. He wanted to rule by divine rule, but the people were saying, the barons were saying, well, we can't have that. So then he was forced to have long parliaments, and he sort of acquiesced a bit and then got on his Todd again and said, no, no, no. And we had the English Civil War in the mid-1600s. You'll remember that. And then, of course, we had Oliver Cromwell. We got the beginnings of some sort of parliament. And then Charles II came back, was allowed to become king. And we ended up with this sort of the king being the arbiter, I suppose, of the decisions made in the parliament. So we had a semblance of something, but even then that was rotten, if you remember, because we had rotten boroughs, we had people influencing. It's been rotten right from the start. It's never actually done the job it really should be doing. And we all sort of go, oh, but that's the system. And people do not seem to be able to get out of that one narrow band of thinking and not thinking outside of the box. Prior to all of that, of course, we had the kings making the decisions. But even in those days, you know, when the Normans came over, you had the barons and things were done very locally. And I would like to see that kind of system back again, so that the decisions are made in the towns and in the boroughs, in the parishes, in the shires. The decisions for what people want are made much more locally. The people decide. It may be 100 miles down the road. They have completely different ideas on how they want to govern themselves, which I think is absolutely fine. And so you'd have a system in which the people themselves are making the decisions, not government, not people telling them, not even that system of pushing it back up, but the people themselves, that you don't have to have gone to an elite school, that you don't have to have a lot of money, that everybody who wants to can meet in the town halls, in the, on the beaches, in the parks, in the meeting rooms, and start to create their own policies that they agree. Now, I know it would take some time because a lot of people are just not interested in politics. But if it meant that you could make and you could influence and you actually what you say really matters and that you were listened to. So in effect, you'd have mini debating chambers where you could put your views down and people living in whatever street could say, actually, this is what we need, some more street lighting in our street. We need this in our street. We need this over here. We need this in the parks. We need this protection from our police. We need this, that, and the other, whatever it is. And that people started to get back together again and become more interested in their local environment. And so I think that the politics should start locally. Not with one MP sitting in some area doing surgeries and all of this sort of rubbish. The people of the towns, of the villages and the cities need to be making the decisions for their place. Okay, so you say, all right, well, that's all right. Isn't that what the councils are for? To be honest with you, I would get rid of all the councils. I would get shot of them because they are like mini dictators anyway. They're only there to influence and put out what the main government has been doing, you know, the net zero policies. They're the ones that are acquiescing to the 5G towers. They're the ones that are allowing all the surveillance that's going up that nobody's actually asked for. They're the ones that are making some of the roads into 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. They're the ones that put speed bumps in. They're the ones that are causing, again, more hardships for everyone and charging council tax, as we've seen, which is, of course, a fraudulent tax. So I would abolish all of that and would make sure that it's the people, the individual people are the ones that are making the decisions. They can come along if they're interested. If they're not interested, as a lot of people aren't, well, they'll just go with the flow, because unless they sort of want to change something, they would be absolutely able to come in. Now, if you've seen any of the videos in which the public go into these council meetings and they're treated abysmally by the council as if they're just scum. Oh, we better give them 5 minutes to say what they want in their environment. This is totally, absolutely dreadful. That's not how to run a community or a village or a town or whatever. It's the people who live in that town and village. They should be the ones that are making the decisions. I mean, it's so bleating obvious, isn't it? Not some sort of these jumped up councillors who are being paid lots of money and going, no, we know what's best for you. I'm sorry, you don't know what's best for me. I know what's best for me. Thank you very much. And it isn't having all this sort of radiation technology coming in, all these strange LED lights which have other uses. I'm not having any of that. Thank you very much. It's we, the people, should be making those decisions equally. And you could put things to the vote. You could put things in a democratic way. You could talk and discuss and things. Now, I know committees can be very slow and what have you, but the people are the ones that should be making those decisions. So what about nationally then? You say, well, what about the borders and what about the police and what about the laws of the land and things like that? Well, I want to cover that in a different video because I think there is a different way of looking at all of that as well. But in the meantime, I want to vote for a different system, not the two-party system, not the MP that's supposed to represent but doesn't represent. I don't think that putting anybody in, whoever you think of it is, whether it's the Greens, whether it's the Yellows, whether it's the Blue, whether it's the Red, or whether it's an independent, is going to make the blind bit of difference when it comes to running the country or looking after our interests. I think they'll all, just as the Titanic, they'll all be at the mercy of the people pulling the strings and will eventually hit the iceberg. And the problem is we'll all go bloody down with it in the water looking for the lifebelts, which, by the way, the Nigel Farages and all the others will be the ones that have already got those lifebelts hidden away for themselves, and you and I will have nothing.